All right, so there are basically three types of methods in Java. There are methods that don't take any parameters at all. There are methods that take parameters, and there are methods that return values. Well, I guess there's combinations of all those as well. But anyway, those are the way I'm going to explain it. So the first type is just methods that you call to do something, but you don't necessarily um, send them anything, right? So the examples that you guys have done so far with the turtle are like turn right, turn left, things like that. You don't tell it how much to turn, and those, you know, do the thing they're supposed to do, but they aren't super useful. So, or they could be more useful. So let me give you an example of a method that I might write. So I have a public class car, okay? And inside my public class car, I might have a method called honk. All right, and all it does is print out beep, beep. So, I mean, that's okay. That's, definitely a method. It does something. But kind of like the original constructor we wrote, in between these parentheses, it doesn't get anything, right? You can't tell it how to honk. With the turtle turn right, it always turns 90 degrees. You can't tell it how much to turn. So it would be really nice if, we could change that, right? If we could tell it how much to turn, or what we want the honk to say. So I'm going to make a new method here. I'm going to call it horn, and it's going to take a sound as a parameter. So things you pass in are called parameters. In other languages, they might be called arguments, and I might use that term because I teach like 4 different languages and they sometimes get mixed up in my mind. So this right here is called a parameter. Sometimes you might see it listed as an argument. And there are strict definitions for those, which I think they go over in the text. But for now, I just want you to understand when I say parameter or argument, that's what I mean. So instead of always printing out beep, beep, I can print the sound that got passed in. So in my main program, right, I would call my car, say I have a car, C equals a new car, right? I didn't write a constructor for it, but let's pretend there is one. If I call C dot honk, it's just going to print out beep, beep no matter what. If I call C dot horn, I have to pass it a parameter. If I just try to close this parentheses here, Java will barf. It will say, expected a parameter. So I have to say, I don't know, toodaloo or something, whatever I want my horn to actually say. And then it'll pass this string into this parameter, and then it will print out that parameter. So this makes methods a lot more useful. You can imagine with the turtle, maybe you don't want to always turn 90 degrees, right? Maybe you want your turtle to turn only 45 degrees and, or 60 degrees. Maybe you want to make a triangle. Maybe you want to make a star turning at 30 degrees. Maybe you want to, make a spiral where it changes every single time. So being able to pass in parameters to methods is really powerful. And the last type of method is one that gives you something back. So say I have a public class my math, right? And I want to write a function a method, there you go, a method that returns the square root. Actually, that's hard. Let's just do the square of a number. So I'm going to call it square, and I have to have a parameter. I can't call square on nothing. So I have to pass in, I'm going to make it an integer. You can make it a double if you want, but I'm just going to make it an integer for now. Int, let's call it num. And the way that you send something back to the person that asked for it is you return something. In this case, what we're going to return is num times num, right? Because that's the square. But Java wants to know what you are returning. So you have to tell it that you are sending an integer back. Something I skipped over when I was writing those previous methods is this word here, void. The reason I wrote void before these methods is because they don't send anything back. They print out beep beep or they print out the sound, but they don't return anything. So void means nothing, right? They return nothing. They return the void. So all Java methods have to know what they are sending back, what they're returning, right? The main method returns nothing, void. These two ones that I wrote before return nothing, void. But if I want to figure out the result of a calculation like square, I need to send something back. So I'm, in this case, going to send back an integer. And what is that integer? It's just whatever parameter they passed in times itself. So if I passed in 5, it would return 5 times 5, 25, the square. So let me show you how you would use this. So let's do this again. Public static void main args. Okay, so this is our main program again, which, as you'll notice, returns void, nothing. So say I wanted to print out the square of 5 using my new method that I wrote up here. Well, I have int x equals 5. I maybe want to make an integer called the square equals. Oh, I have to make a math object first. Let's make it up here. So my math equals new my math. So we'll pretend that I wrote a constructor for that. So the square is going to be dot square of x. So I created this object, which is a my math object. I made a new variable called x and set it equal to 5. I made a new variable called the square, and I set it equal to my math object method square with the parameter x. So it's going to look in my math. It's going to look for this method square, and it's going to pass in or try to pass in this variable x. When it gets here, it says, okay, I have this x. Is it an integer? Yes. Good. It's 5. So I'm going to return 5 times 5. So it's going to return back into here 5 times 5, which is 25. So the square will get the value of 25. It basically takes this whole thing and replaces it with whatever the return statement is. So this will return 25. So I can actually put anything in square as long as it's an integer. I could put the number 5. I could put this variable x, which is an integer. Anything that's an integer I can pass in here. If I tried to do 5.0, Java would complain because that's not an integer. So this method right here is a pretty typical method. It has at least one parameter, and it returns a value. And that's how most of your methods are going to be. They're either going to like take something and do with it, or they'll give you back something. And those are the 3 main types. Either something that you just call, honk, with no parameters, turn right 90 degrees, whatever it is. Something that takes a parameter and does something. Or something that takes something and passes something else back.